Today we're going to talk about Chapter 7, Database Administration. You can read over the objectives as you're reading the chapter. Database administration is the process of managing a database. The administrator is the person or a group of people in the business that's in charge of managing the database. Creating and using views. Views are programs or individual users' picture of the database. It's based off an underlying base table, which is, it's a permanent table. The view that's created is not permanent. It's not doesn't have data in it. It's derived because the data is retrieved from it. Usually includes less information than the full database. What this means is it may be a subset of records and or fields. I may only want 4 fields instead of all of them. I may want to, where a certain condition is met by using a where clause. Simplifies data processing for the user. Also provides some security by omitting some sensitive information if you don't want that user to have access to it. You create it by defining a query, indicates rows and columns to include. You use the create view command followed by the as keyword. So you can create view toys. So toys is the name of it. These are the fields that you want, only for category toy. So it returns 5 records. If you go back and look at the query, those are the 4 fields. And all 5 of these records has a category toy, even though it doesn't display that, because that's what put on the where clause. And again, it's not a temporary table, so you see it, but it really doesn't exist. To query a view, you merge query that created a view with a query that selects the specified data. So this is what the item table looks like. Here's a SQL that's using the query that we just created, or the view we just created, and they're adding another criteria to it. So notice there's only 4 records, because what it's doing, these 5 records that was previous were toy categories, but there's one of them that the price wasn't greater than $100, and that's why it's omitted. The actual query that's executed by the SQL statement is this here. The where category equals toys from the create view command, and this is from the query that was ran off the view. So what that tells you is the actual query that is executed, you have to combine the 2 where clauses, or if there's 2 where clauses, you have to combine all of them together. So in the create view, it says where category equals toy. In the SQL statement, it says where price is greater than 100. The reason this is important is because there's like 3 examples of this on your lab sheet. So make sure you understand this if you don't contact me. You can assign column names in a view that are different than the base tables. You just include them in parentheses. And the output would display the new column names. So the output would display INUM, DSC, OH, and PRCE instead of that. This is showing that you can join 2 or more tables together. So again, all it's doing, all the queries you used in previous chapters, you can use them in here on your create view statement. So they named this rep customer, and they're just tying those 2 tables together, rep and customer. This is showing you use statistics. Remember, on statistics, you need to use the group by. So if you're getting a sum or a count or an average or anything like that, that has to be based on a group. So make sure that you remember that when you're on one of the exercises on your lab sheet. So they're using the count function, which is the aggregate function. So that right there should jump right out and tell you, oh, I got to have a group by. The problem is that when you do this way and you have another query based off this, when you get to the section in your lab sheet that says what's the actual query that's executed, you since it's going to be based on a group, you'll use it instead of the having clause, instead of the where clause, you use the having clause. Remember, where goes on individual records, having goes on individual groups. The benefits of views: provide data independence. Users can only see what the view allows them access to. Different users can have the same data differently, can view it differently, can put it in a different order, whatever. Customize display to meet each user's need. A view can contain only those columns required by a given user. which means if they don't need to see annual salary, then you don't have to show it to them. This is another way to provide another measure of security. Benefits of views are to retrieve or for retrieval purposes only. Updating data through a view is dependent on the type of view. You can update it if it contains a primary key, and if it's not, you can update it. You can update when a view is derived by joining two tables on primary key of each table. So if you join two tables, it has to be by the primary key. Cannot update when the view involves joining by matching primary key with one table with a column that is not the primary key. All right, so a field that's in one table that is not the primary key in that table, but it is the primary key of another table, that's what it's talking about. So in that case, the field that's not the primary key in that table is called a foreign key. Encounter more severe problems if neither of the joined columns is a primary key. Updating views involving statistics, the most difficult to update. Cannot add rows to a view that includes calculations. Dropping a view. Drop view command. Makes sense, right? Because you did the drop table to drop tables. Just realize this is only dropping a view. It has nothing to do with the base table or the data in it. Security, prevention of unauthorized access to a database. Some users may be able to retrieve and update anything in the database. Others may be able to retrieve data but not change it. And other users may be able to access only portions of it. And you do that by doing the grant command. So the database administrator can grant different privileges to different tables to different people. All right, so John may need access to the student information, but not to the payroll information or the financial aid information. The administrator can also revoke them later by using the revoke command. Privilege includes rights to select, insert, update, index, and delete tables. The administrator uses revoke command to remove the privileges from them. The format's similar. Make sure you read over those examples in the book because there's a bunch of problems on the lab sheet. Speeds up the searching of a table is what an index does. You think of it like a book. You know, you open your book and you go back to the end and you look for something that tells you the page number. That's the way the indexes work in the database management system, except instead of a page number, it's going to tell you the row number it's on. Excuse me. And this is showing you that, you know, you can have multiple indexes, multiple rows to the index. So for instance, they create an index on credit limit. So this says that, hey, in this table, there's on row 5 and row 6, they have a credit limit of 5,000. These 6 rows right here has 7,500. These has 2 and those has 2. What that important is it speeds up the processing. You know, instead of having to search through it, this by using index, it allows the database administrator, the database management system to go right there and grab those rows. SQL manages the indexes. User determines the columns on which they build. But the disadvantage is the indexes occupy disk spaces, and the database management system must update the index as data is entered. Use the create index command with the name of the index, identify the table and the column or columns. So this says create index bal end, which is the name of it, on the customers, the table, and balance is the name of the column. Create index rep name on the rep table, alphabetical by last name, then first name. Sorry. Dropping an index, you just use the drop index command. Creating unique indexes. To ensure uniqueness of non-primary key data, you create a unique index. You use the create unique index command to do that. A unique index will reject any updates that would cause a duplicate value in the specified columns. System catalog. It's also referred to as the data dictionary. It contains information about the tables in the database. Use CIST tables to list all the tables in the database, CIST columns to list all columns in it, and CIST views to list all information. Now, this depends on what database management system you're using. If you're using Oracle, these are the commands you use. We're using MySQL. All right, so you can try these, but they're not going to work. So you need to go to Google and type in MySQL display table information and see what command it tells you to use. And I could tell you that, but I want you to get in the habit of learning how to do that. The database management system automatically updates the catalog when you do a create, alter, or drop table, or create or drop indexes. The user should not update catalogs directly. Integrity constraints. Here's the rule in the data. The rule for the data in the database is what they call an integrity constraint. Sales rep number must be unique. Sales rep number for a customer must match an existing sales rep number. Category for items must be GME, TOY, or PZL. Integrity support is a process of specifying integrity constraints for the database. Remember, you can't allow users to enter in stuff that's not valid. For instance, they can't enter in a category that's not a valid category. There's clauses to support the integrity constraints with the create table and the alter table. In the alter table, you do add primary key, or with the create table for that matter, and add foreign key. All of our tables are already created, so you're going to have to do the alter table one right here and then add them that way if you need it. Primary keys, add primary key that you use after creating a table. Foreign keys, already talked about what that is. Legal values, use a check clause to ensure legal values. And this example is the valid categories when they're going to use the check. So this says alter table orders, add a foreign key customer number that references, or foreign key own customer number that references customer. Now, if you're choosing to do this based on the book and not testing it in MySQL, which I wouldn't recommend, some students do, and I don't make them redo it. If you're doing it in MySQL, which I would prefer, you're going to have to put customer number parentheses after the customer to make it work. After creating a foreign key, the database management system rejects any updates that violates the key constraint. You'll get an error message refer to the parent and the child. When specifying a foreign key, the table containing a foreign key is the child. The table referenced by the foreign key is the parent. So here's what happens. You've got this add check, GME, PZL, and TOY. Those are valid categories. They try to set the category to MAG, which is not one of the valid. It kicks out a check constraint violated. That's what it's the purpose of adding integrity constraints. It doesn't let you put in invalid data, or that's not required. That's not correct. All right, here's a summary. If you have any questions, let me know. Hope this helped.